So let's set the foundation, go all the way back to, and you pick the start date. So this could be the beginning of our coaching relationship. This could also be like a year prior to that, or maybe even 2 years prior to that, when you and I first started talking about coaching.
The very first time we spoke, I was a month away from leaving my job. Something in me was saying that it wasn't right. There was something pulling me somewhere else, and I didn't know where else. And you reached out on Facebook, and we chatted, and it was just like such a surprisingly nice conversation. I mean, I think at that point I was in this place of hopefulness and almost maybe a naive state of trust of all I need to do is get rid of this current thing that's not serving me, this job, create space in my life, and then the next thing will just beautifully present itself. And in a way it did, but my vision did not leave room for all of these continuous ups and downs along the way.
Hmm. Yeah. So that was, and then you went on a big trip.
And then this opportunity to go to Costa Rica just popped into my inbox, and it was absolutely perfect. And I was there for 5 months, and that gave me this landing place and this place of growth and this place where it was like there were triggers for sure, but it was almost like my life had structure and purpose, and it all added up, every little piece lined up. And so I was able to show up as this glowing, healthy, happy, best version of myself while I was there. However, this was only 5 months, and then my intuition sent me back home to ride out the pandemic from home and see what kind of business I could create. And that is when I started a coaching package with you. The other interesting thing for me about that timing financially is that I had given myself the financial cushion from leaving my job of that I had enough money that I could go to this yoga teacher training program, go to Burning Man. Then I found the money to go to Costa Rica for 5 months, which was free, but I still had student loans and health insurance and stuff I was paying. And then I got back from that, and I thought I was out of money. I was like, I don't have any more money to spend. And that is when I made the choice to spend $6,000 on a coaching package, which was just what? How? How? And I that in and of itself is one of the most powerful things for me. Is that when I thought I couldn't is exactly when I did and invested more in myself than I ever would have when I had so much more coming in to theoretically invest. The experience in itself of investing in the coaching package was perhaps the most powerful part of the entire thing.
I mean, that's such a powerful statement, and I felt it too. And that's why I celebrate for you and for everyone who shows up that much and with that much courage, which I saw in you, and that much vulnerability, which I saw in you. Like you said, I mean, logistically, right? Nothing else would have happened had you not taken that step. But from the growth side of the amount of work, essentially, that you had to go through yourself in order to make that payment, in order to show up and say yes. That's what we ended up nurturing for the 6 months that we have together. And that first step was the snowball, was the start of it. That was a huge jump start to propel all the growth that was to follow. You said, maybe a little bit naively, I thought everything would fall into place. And then when you went on to explain what happened next, you said, and everything just fell into place. The ducks just lined up in a row, and I had this great opportunity that just appeared in my inbox. Did you realize that happened?
I mean, I did realize that, but it's and there were 2.5 really hard months before that opportunity fell into my inbox. And then that opportunity lasted 5 months, and then now there's the rest of my life. So it's not like it happened, it did happen. And I believe it will continue to happen. And there's a lot of space in between when we need to sit with ourselves without the security of that full time job or the comfort of that paycheck or of knowing what's next. And that is really challenging.
Hmm. Yes. What I hear you saying, and this is like a lifelong lesson, all of us are still, I think, always learning it, is like we can go through the growth and trust our intuition and start practicing that and flex that muscle. And still, like you just said, you said, I believe in that this will continue to happen. And still, it's really uncomfortable for those times when maybe it doesn't look like we thought it would look, right? The how is really unclear, even if we trust it.
Yeah.
Um, or like you said, there's just space. There's space in between when it is uncertain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And then the second thing I wanted to highlight was how much I admire you and how proud I am of you. And this theme also that you repeated of when you thought you couldn't anymore, when you thought you didn't have the money, when you thought like now would not be the time, there was this gut feeling and this motivation, this drive to say, this is the time I'm going to enlist the support of one-on-one coaching and spend $6,000 and take this risk. And I remember our conversations leading up to that. Yes, it was like, it was like, yes, I want to do it. And then another email would be like, maybe not, I don't know. And then the next email would be like, yeah, no, I'm totally going to do it. And that's part of the wave too, right? That's part of, it's like, okay, I have this intuition. This is what I feel. I'm called to it, and it's freaking scary, and that's okay.
And I'm in a similar position again with like this house where I'm like, okay, I'm on the line for rent. Again, I'm like, I don't know how. And one thing that the coaching experience has given me for my financial beliefs is like, just let it surprise you.
I really want to highlight this. It's such a beautiful quote. You said, let it surprise you. Like, let it surprise you by what happens. And in
Yeah.
these conversations and in everything, I feel like we can say things and then like we say it for ourselves too. So I'm like just repeating it back for me, for you, for everyone who's listening. Let it surprise you and have that faith and let it be surprising. And maybe that means that if there isn't that clear how immediately, that just means that there's a really cool surprise coming. Like we can believe that or not, but if we choose to believe that, it may feel a lot easier than if we fight against it. So then tell us a little bit about the 6 months themselves. What happened during those 6 months, maybe a few highlight experiences, and what was coaching like?
Your ability as a coach is like really remarkable. Um, you you expertly guide conversations. It's a gift. So not only is there never a dull moment, um, but it's also always going in the most productive direction. It's like it actually um, something small actually shifts on each one of those calls. I like saw it as so valuable, and I spent the whole freaking 2 weeks prior ruminating about what problem I was going to solve in this coaching session. And then I'd come and have this hour long, very powerful call, and then go back to my life. And then fortunately, I had this tech support, and then I would use my text messages to continue ruminate, to just continue as this outlet for all the shit that was in my mind. And then at some point, I realized that um, I mean, I am a yogi at heart. And that came through many times in the coaching session. And the teaching of yoga is quiet the mind and connect with yourself. And I realized that I was using these texts to just validate my mind. It was like my mind would say something that was wrong, and I would just like, instead of like questioning it, stepping away from it, coming to a place of greater calm, I was instantly like typing it to Maureen so she could fix it, because that's what I was paying for, right? It was for Maureen to help me fix all my problems. I'm ruminating about everything that's wrong in my life. Um, and then I realized that that was actually counterproductive. So that in and of itself was real, and that the calls, on the other hand, were really productive. That each call, it was like there were big shifts that happened, like big learnings that came through. We ended up switching the coaching package. I asked Maureen if we could change it to having an extra call a week or a month instead of having the unlimited texting.
When you first were bringing up, like, I feel so much pressure for these sessions because you loved them and grew so much from each, and then held them like a gemstone where it's like it was almost like I saw you taste what happens in those sessions. And then you're like, oh, these are valuable. I need to make sure I get everything I can out of these. And then this like kind of shadow side twist happened where it was like so much holding on to them, so much holding on to these hours that within the session was being affected. And then, as you explained, the text messaging in between was just like there was a lot of gremlin activity going on. And
Very close to the time, though.
yeah.
Yeah.
And eventually when you came forward and you were like, can we add an extra session? And up until that point in Yes Anne's history, I hadn't had 2 coaching packages for my one-on-one clients. And you presented that and I let it digest. I did my own like intuition check-in stuff. And I was like, for sure for Annie, for sure to
Oh,
say you need, like, I could see it. I could see what was happening. And as you explained and as you were experiencing, we could tell that the text messaging, while it's extremely valuable for some of my clients, they love having that place to just like debrief and digest and like, oh my gosh, I just had another insight or needing more support. That's not what was happening for you. For you, it was that like spiral. And so I was like, well, for sure for Annie. So I was like, yes to you. And then I hold so much gratitude for you for bringing that up, because now I have clients who choose, now I have both of those options to choose at the forefront of coaching packages. And I have clients who are so appreciative. So as you said earlier, investing in coaching was a really monumental moment for you that changed a lot. And then I would say that like 4 months in, when you requested to change the package, that was another really big moment, because you were standing up for, you knew what you wanted, you knew what was happening, you were observing it, you could see it, you had already done some mindset work just to like check around to see like, is this something else or is this actually something that I want? And then you asked for it and then it changed. And then the rest of our months together, you were like, this is amazing. Like, this is so perfect. I'm so glad I did this. And that was really all you.
I mean, it was not all me, it was both of us. Um, you, like, that speaks a lot to who you are, that you could have just been like, no, this is my package, and you created the space to change that for me within boundaries that also worked for you. One of the things that came out of coaching is like, the practice of yoga is so important to me. That is my practice, and that is, contrary to popular belief, not about showing up on your mat every morning or even sitting in meditation, although meditation does help. But it is about how you show up in every single moment, and not giving so much power to the negative thoughts that are very magnetizing and try and pull you in. So that moment of noticing that this text messaging was actually taking away from my life. Not because Maureen wasn't doing a great job of responding, but because of how I was using it internally, was so profound. It's like that is the choice that we talk about, of I can choose to give these problems more time of day. I can choose to say, yes, this is actually a problem. Or I can choose to say, you know what? This thought is not serving me right now. After that change was made, like, the entire content of our coaching calls changed. um, it was like suddenly, like I thought that I wanted coaching to help me form a business. And I'm still like, oh, what is my daily schedule and holding myself accountable and my business and what? But it's like I, I like creating that little bit of more space allowed me to just work through the human stuff that was there, which I hadn't even thought. I had not crossed my mind that that would be a reason that I was seeking coaching, um, and um, and like one of I think the most valuable calls or calls that I've seen that value in already came immediately after we made that shift. I was like, oh, I have room to talk about this situation in my life that I wouldn't have talked about otherwise if I had known we only had 4 precious sessions left.
You mentioned that the sessions were where you found like that profound insight. So what does that look like? What happened in those little gemstones?
Oh, um, well, the one that I feel most compelled to share is our first session when we did a visualization and visualized my future self. And it was just this like 5 minute little short visualization of like the direction setting of where I'm going. Um, and I have come back to that future self so many times. I draw on it so often. I draw upon that vision. Um, and I mean, again, like you heard me say, like sometimes it's frustration because I'm like, I'm not that all the time. But it also kind of serves as this, like, this place of, okay, but I also am that. Like that person that we visualized was not someone other than me. It was me. I have access to all this wisdom in this person. So what we did, I mean, doing this guided visualization was one session that really jumps out at me, and then the others. I mean, it's just this dialogue. um, I mean they're also personal. I almost like don't even want to like I don't want to share.
Yes,
um,
absolutely. And I'm because of that telepathy via telepathy sending you my favorite one. So see if you can know what one that one is. But there's one that do you have an inkling?
Does it include a lock and a key?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I cherish that image. I think of it all the time. And I think of you and I think of how beautiful it is that is and all of our sessions, but that one particularly, it was just such this powerful image and this experience. And I think just, I mean, like you said, of why you don't want to share these of it is such a personal
It's
space.
not personal. It's so much not just business and planning your life and making a schedule. It's like getting into like Maureen could call her coaching like soul coaching.
Mm.
That's what you do. It's not surface level. I mean, that's why I still have all my surface level life problems because like that's not where the work is. It's deeper.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the results of like what I have learned, it doesn't it doesn't show up all at once as this like my life is turned on its head and I'm my future self. Like I'm just myself. Situations repeat themselves. That's kind of how life works. We keep getting taught the same lesson until we learn it, um, and we can get caught on the same hamster wheel of responding in the same way, or we can like learn from it and respond differently. So the value of this 6 months of coaching, it's like I don't think I've seen even a fraction of the value yet. I think it's like a value that will continue to carry with me as little situations arise. And I'm like, I am a little bit more empowered to handle this a little bit differently because I invested in myself and made the choice to work on it. I feel like every coach, it's like every type of coaching is different. Like coaching is kind of
Yes.
an umbrella term, and then each person brings their uniqueness, which is why it's so important to follow your gut with who you choose to work with. This coaching relationship, I honestly don't have much more clarity on my career after than I did before, even though
Mm-hmm.
that is what I had thought I was looking for. But I have a greater capacity to handle breakups, I think happens and how I deal with that. But like I see my fears differently. Like I feel more empowered. Um, I I feel more able to set boundaries. Um, I feel confident investing in myself. I don't think it's a drastic transformation. I think it's
Mm.
a subtle transformation. I think the shifts are subtle. I think that like I think that anything that says do this and you'll do a 180. I mean there's a lot of that in the marketing world of like this is going to change you. If that is what you want, if that's what you're buying, you will be disappointed. It's
Mm.
not this drastic transformation. It is subtle, daily, slow, tidbits of work. Maybe for other people it is. I'm speaking only from my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is showing up each day to do the work, um, seeing what room for growth there is, using the coaching relationship to support you in that growth, um, and and then I mean, it's possible that there's a domino effect, um, and that subtle shifts will create giant change if practiced consistently over time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't see it as this like. I think the idea of it as a huge transformation is misleading. I think
Mm.
it's much more. I think it happens on a subtler level. At least the work that we did,
Yeah.
it's subtle internal shifts.
It is so important to bring that up. Like you talked about, you feel empowered and you talk with your fears differently and you know yourself differently. And we found that nugget of like yoga is your purpose. Like that is the thing that lives through you. Um, and that's what a dream career stems from. Like without any of that, a dream career can't happen or a dream relationship can't happen because there isn't that foundational awareness. And so putting myself in your shoes or like in the client shoes of when I think back to some coaching relationships that I've had where quite frankly I was in a very similar seat to you in this very moment where afterwards I was like, I don't know if that was worth it. I don't know what that taught me. And then now, years and years and years later, I can say, remember that one session that I had with that coach? And I had like, there's not even an awareness of like, that's the session to like come back to eventually. It's just like now I'm like, oh, that was the, like you're saying, the subtle shift that led to this domino, that led to this domino, or like that was the subtle shift that then just like eventually morphed into me having my own coaching business or you having your own cafe or whatever it ends up being of having this foundation created and bringing all of us back to the earth to be like, it's not going to be 180 in 6 months and then you're fine for the rest of your life.
Exactly. It's that. It's a process.
Yeah.
It's like if and like it's important to me to convey that because I I would have wanted to know that before investing in it. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean it's not worth it. If you ask me if it's worth it, my answer is yes. Um, but it's not going to fix you. It's not going to fix all your problems. Um, you have to fix. I mean, it's not even about fixing. It is ongoing. It's an ongoing daily practice of taking and applying the things to grow from them. Um, and and it's not just a 6 month package. Like if you show up and you invest in one 6 month coaching package and then you call it a day, I mean, sure, you'll get some benefit. Um, but I think that's how I was looking at it. I was like, this is a price tag. Like, this is $6,000 for this package, and this will take me to where I need to be. And then at the end of that, I should have everything that I wanted because I invested this money. If you want to continue piling on the growth on top of each other and continue to see that change happening, you need to continue to invest in yourself and not expect that the work will be all done because the 6 month is up. The 6 months is really rather arbitrary. It's just to create some structure for the
Mm-hmm.
package.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. I think it's fascinating because from a coach's shoes, I look at you and see so much change from 6 months ago.
Really?
And yeah, yeah. And I think about each of our sessions and I think about the imagery that we created and navigated and the depth that we went in and the emotions that we tapped into and the clarity that, and you said before, like, to be honest, I don't know if I feel that much clarity, but the clarity that I experienced with you during those sessions, the insights, the actions that you then took to follow, the things that you would not have done 6 months ago that you have now done like 5, 10, 20 of them. And so I so empathize and feel what you're feeling. And at the same time, it's a really interesting place for me to stand because it's like, so much has changed. So much has changed. And like respecting that like we were talking about earlier, the fruits of that will show up in probably the way that we expect change to look like for months and years to follow.
Yeah.
And just to like celebrate that I did see so much change for you. And I saw you take really brave action and show up so vulnerably and meet yourself at a place that from what we navigated in the sessions, you hadn't gone there before ever in your life. And for that to all have happened within 6 months, maybe it wasn't the 180 in terms of like, now I have a business and it's like bringing in enough money for me to pay everything I need. And I'm feeling super comfortable and relationship is fantastic. And like those like external things that all of us humanly want and crave, other things have taken an absolute 180 from where we started to where you are seated right now and how you're even talking about it and relating with all of this.
I think that question of what 3 major shifts has happened would be a really interesting one to answer.
Yeah, go for it.
One is that I started a cooking course, and whether or not I will continue doing that, or whether or not that is my purpose or work that lights me up, I'm not sure. Um, but I did it. And so now I know that I can. And I know that um, that I can make money outside of a job because I've done it. And I can alter it, I can shift it, I can change it, but I have that as a foundation. A second major shift is boundaries, which is an issue that has continually popped up in my life with setting appropriate boundaries, and it still comes up, but now I recognize it. It's like I saw it pop up again, and I'm like, oh, this is a boundary. This is a boundary situation. And we came up with this concept of um, healthy boundaries foster connection. And it's realizing that when I don't communicate my boundaries and then I'm upset later because they've been crossed, like I set myself up for conflict. And the quicker that I can communicate a boundary and lay it out, it doesn't need to be unpleasant. It's just letting someone know. um, then that can actually create a healthy relationship, because then they are equipped to meet that boundary, or we can go in separate directions. Um, so yeah, being like, I think I used to like try so hard to be nice, or not like not want to make anyone uncomfortable, or be such a people pleaser, and then in that I was not asserting like my personal boundaries. Um, so yeah, that alone um, will serve me over and over again throughout my life, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Um, and then the last one is this idea that rejection is the key to my growth, and maybe even like that's a subtle way, a simple way to say it, like using the word rejection, but maybe even not looking at it as rejection, like maybe like reframe and just exploring this idea of like, what is this part of me that is so afraid of being turned down, or a relationship ending, or not being friends with someone, or like what what is that? And the reason that is the key to my growth, for it to happen, is so that I can see it differently and see myself differently. Um, and yeah, I haven't been in a situation again since, and it hasn't been that long since our coaching session, um, where that has come up. But when it does come up, which it inevitably will, because that's a part of life, um, I'm gonna look at that with so much greater awareness, instead of just being in that story of, I feel rejected and I feel hurt and what's wrong with me. I will look at it and say, this is a situation, and I can learn a whole lot from it, and use it to unpack the part of me that feels incomplete or unworthy, or whatever that is, and find greater touch with myself in my center, and my self confidence and my self worth. Um, and like, how empowering and life changing is that? So there are all of these things that my mind can be like, my problems, I still have all the same
Mm.
problems. But the things that I just pointed to in these three areas of growth, and those are just three because Maureen picked three, but she could have said 20 and I could have come up with 20. Like, they are also there, and they came out of this investment. Personal growth is my highest value, because all I have to live with is myself. Um, and we are with ourselves all the time. Um, so if we can invest in ourselves and make changes that allow us to live with ourselves and interact with the world in healthier ways, in ways that lift us up rather than drag us down when these situations happen, um, then like that is that's worth a lot.
It's a continuous journey, and naming all the things of that have like those three greatest areas, or three of the many ready right greatest areas of what you took away from this coaching experience and how you grew, and then simultaneously listing off all these other areas of your life where you want to grow.
Yeah.
I'm going to like take us to your favorite place of yoga and say that is forever. That is always, right? We always have these celebrations and these goals and things that we still want. And if we stop wanting, like, life is desire. And so if we stop desiring, that's we stop living. And so there's always going to be these desires.
For me, this experience has it's highlighted both like my best self and my worst self, and I get to see both of those. Um, and I like, there's all of this thought in my head, all of these thoughts about, is this worth it, and am I getting the value, and all of these problems, and just all the shit. Like, there's so much shit in there, and that you're even seeing come through in this conversation, that I still have all of this shit. And then there's also like the fact that like Martin is an amazing coach, um, and like you do this from such a place of like this is your soul's work. Like there's no question about is this your work. And I mean, I like I that's one of the things that like I don't have that I want, and I wanted to like get as like I want to know what my work is. um but like that aside, it's like almost a testament to how good you are at this, that you didn't just give me what I wanted. Like I wanted to find that, but you didn't let me go there. And I wanted to create a life that looks like yours because it's so structured and you get so much done, and you did not say like, yes, let's create this. You made it about me and what do I need, which is just so different than who you are and what you need and what your life looks like. And um, like you are doing your soul's work, and you are working so freaking hard. um, and you give so much, and you do it from such a place of like love and compassion and like resilience. And it's not like there's like I can say this added value, or I'm not sure if this added value, and you don't say, oh no, I maybe I suck. Like there's no sense of like I need to take care of you. Like you show up in this role of like I am there 100% to support you, and you give so much. um, and it's like it's such a gift to like there's like the business of it that, and like yeah, like hell yeah, you deserve to like have a thriving business and pay your expenses and all of that. um, and there's also the fact that like you're giving so unconditionally. um, and I felt that so much. And like really loved and cherished and looked forward to every phone call with you. Um, so, to someone who is considering coaching, um, I like, I'm not sitting here saying, yes, just go for it, just do it. Like, no, listen to yourself. Like, does this feel right? Like, does, like, without expectations of what you're going to get from it, but like with confidence that this feels like something that you want to try and be open to what you'll get from it. And then as you do so, can you, like, this was from my higher self to you, like, of course we want to be rational and use logic and make sure that the investment feels like a worthy investment, but can you set aside the chaos in your mind about what you're supposed to get and if it's worth it, because that's not helpful, and that really is just distracting from what it actually gives, which is a lot. Um, so it's a huge investment, and on all the levels, you have to you gotta invest in yourself every day. Beyond if you don't show up for yourself in all the time between the sessions, like the money is only one small piece of the investment. Um, but it is it's also it's a lot of value. Maureen gives a lot. Um, so yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I was getting teary-eyed, and I could tell you were too. And what came to me, Annie, is just the thought was like 3, 5, 10 years from now, when you and I look back on this moment, like I have no idea what it's going to be, like what we're going to know then that we don't know now. But I just got this sense of just as much turmoil and stress and like whatever else is here, the shit, as you keep referring to it as, like as much of that that's here, how gorgeous, like how stunning this period of life is for you, like the wrestling. And I am so honored that you chose me to be your guide for 6 months and
Oh my god, now I'm crying. That's the other thing I learned to do in the sessions was cry. I feel
Mhm.
like that was a big like breaking point is when I was like, oh my god, I can cry.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, I think like this is a really weird, hard time of life. So it's like not only was this just like a coaching package, but this is like coaching during like a really weird, hard time of
Yeah.
life
Yeah.
for the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and for you to trust me during that time just means everything. And thank you. Thank you again for sharing honestly, for sharing vulnerably, for sharing with so much courage and so much insight and so much wisdom. Your higher self was here today. And I'm here, you know, I'm here. And I am
No,
so,
honestly, I see myself working with you again. When I have, I mean, right now, I literally did take the money I was paying for coaching and put it into paying for rent. So I
mhm,
like right now, I actually can't do it right now in this moment.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, to again answer the question, was it worth it? I would do it again. So.
Yeah. And I can see that too. I can see us definitely coming back together again. And I look forward to the day so much.
Me too. And I'm tired every time I see you pop up on social media.
Thank you so much.